In today's society, we cannot avoid translated media. Whether it's our books, movies, games, TV, or even advertisements, we have experienced some piece of media that was originally in a foreign language. And we're only able to experience this media by the work of translators. So it's only fair that we have to understand the process that goes into a translation. Today, we'll be taking a look at the video game Danganronpa and what its translation can tell us about brand and localization. My name is Justin Sewell for the Center of Translation Studies, and this is Translation Analysis. I'd say roll credits, but we don't have the budget for that. Danganronpa is a video game franchise that has consumed the last few years of my life, and it refuses to let me escape. The series was created by Kazutaka Kodaka and published by Spike Chunsoft, starting with the 2010 release Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. The games more or less follow the premise that 15 or so talented high school prodigies are trapped in the fictional Hope's Peak Academy, doomed to spend the rest of their days there unless one of them can commit a murder and get away with it. Each murder is followed by a class trial where if the murderer is found out, then they are executed. But if they manage to get away, then everyone else is executed. The franchise has been a resounding success, resulting in 3 mainline games, 1 spin-off game, 1 anime adaptation, 1 anime original, several stage plays, a multitude of mangas and books, and then... nothing. Radio silence ever since the last release in 2017. Except, of course, when Spike Chunsoft needs some quick cash and release pop-up merch you can fangirl over so you can forget your fave brutally died. It's a good thing I don't have a favorite character. For any Danganronpa fans watching, already the words Danganronpa and localization in the same sentence are conjuring up images of Danganronpa v Free, and trust me, we will talk about that game some other time. But for now, I believe it would be best to go back to the first game of the series, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, and see how its translation choices ultimately shaped the franchise as a whole. It's not to say that the first game has a clean reputation. It's less controversial, but that doesn't mean no controversy, especially when compared to the fan translations that came before the North American release. This is another conversation that I want to leave for another day, but for now, I like to take this opportunity to defend some of the more major translation choices that we see in the first game. With the unique identity that this series has, it's imperative that this identity, the Danganronpa brand, be well represented. Okay, hold on, stop. Let's just stop for a second. What the hell is a Danganronpa? You'll be quick to notice that the title Danganronpa is left untranslated, which is an interesting decision. In the fandom, it's become a bit of a meme. Take any one or few words that vaguely sound like Danganronpa, slap them together, and you get award-winning humor, apparently. Take the most popular meme in the fandom, Dang It Grandpa. But what does this title actually mean? Danganronpa is a title consisting of 2 Japanese words, Dangan, meaning bullet, and Ronpa, meaning to tear an opponent's argument to shreds. Put those 2 words together and what do you get? That's right, dang that grandma. Usually on places like Wikipedia or online forums, this title is translated as bullet refutation, and the problem with it is pretty clear. It's not exactly catchy. It's awkward, clunky, it's more confusing than it is alluring. But hold on, these are professional translators we're talking about. We know they could have worked towards something. So why didn't they? As there's no word from any translator at NIS America, the principal translators of this franchise, we can only speculate. And there's 2 major reasons that I can see. First, we need to remember that before the official North American release, there were 2 major fan translations of the first game, the one published on the forum Something Awful, and the collaborative project known as Project Zetsubal. Both of these projects left Danganronpa as is. Now, frustratingly, despite both projects going into their reasoning for a lot of their translation choices, none of them explain why they left Danganronpa the same. Now, while the second reason we'll go into plays a role, I also believe this was a result of inexperience. I mean, it's already a meme that fan translators will leave Japanese words untranslated because they think it sounds cooler or they believe there's no good translation of it. Trust me, I'm also guilty of this. These are the exact types of decisions you see from translators starting out. Either way, this is the title that they went with, and for those who followed the fan translation, this was the title that they were used to. And the people at NIS America knew this. While an official translation changing choices a fan translation made is not exactly breaking news, this title was crucial to the identity of the game. You could risk confusing people or making people unhappy with the decision that you ultimately make. But there may be another more substantial reason. They couldn't come up with a better title. While yes, these are experienced translators, and yes, they could have worked towards something, there's still something iconic about the title Danganronpa. It's bizarre, but it rolls off the tongue well. It's recognizable too. I mean, this may be a part of the reason why the Dang It Grandpa meme got so popular in the first place. Other than sounding funny, it shows how even if you don't remember the exact title, the vague idea of it still sticks around in your mind. It's difficult to completely forget. Still, the translators must have wanted to keep this idea of bullet refutation in some way. Take a look at the subtitle of the North American release, Trigger Happy Havoc. The bullet imagery with Trigger Happy is pretty obvious, and with Havoc, we can see this representing the chaos of the class trials. Shooting the arguments to pieces, screaming over each other, playing hangman to spell the word knife. In other words, the Rampa of Danganronpa. Besides, this is infinitely better than if the Japanese subtitle was literally translated. The Academy of Hope versus the Students of Despair. The translators must have immediately known this title was bad and needed to be replaced. And once you look at that, now we have the opportunity to contextualize what this game is about. Overall, it works. Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc comes together beautifully and helps get into a mindset of what to expect. In other words, it helps establish the game's unique identity. You don't even have to play Danganronpa for 5 minutes to realize just how distinct an identity the franchise has. From its presentation, its writing, its music, it all immediately grabs your attention. And it follows that the translation must adapt this identity well, carry its punchiness across. Throughout the first game, we can see just how seriously this philosophy was taken. We can see this in the execution titles, the game mechanics, the chapter titles. But take the character's talents for another example. Titles that may not be widely understood in the West, such as Junko or Sayaka's, they're rendered in a way that makes them more understandable for us. Even simpler titles, such as Leon or Aoi's, they're rendered in a way that gives them more of a flair, helps establish that identity. This didn't always go well, however. Take Yufumi's talent, for example, which literally translates to Doujin author. Now, I agree that doujin, Japanese media made by smaller, independent creators, needed to be translated. After all, people may not know what that means, or people in the West who are familiar with the term may confuse it for its more pornographic connotations. But translating his title as fanfic creator was not the best choice either, as the idea of fanfic over here in the West is completely inaccurate to what Hifumi does. So this approach didn't always go well, but I can still respect the dedication to making sure that even the character's talents were creatively localized. And speaking of character's talents, in places of the original game, the title that precedes a character's talent is Chou Koukou Kyu, which literally translates to super high school level. In places of the original game, we can even see this translated as super duper high school level, which is beautiful. We can even see this translation adopted by Project Zetsubo. Meanwhile, in other places, the literal translation, super high school level, is more used, such as super high school level swimmer or super high school level good luck. In the official release, super high school level is translated to ultimate, and we can already see a problem. While the original title makes it clear that these students are advanced for their grade level, this title leaves that up to interpretation. Are they ultimate compared to people around their age, or are they ultimate compared to people in their field? Is Aoi a better swimmer than Michael Phelps? Well, obviously not, but that's the confusion this title leaves behind. I'm not here to say that ultimate was the best translation they could have gone with, but I am here to say that it was better than going with super high school level. But firstly, playing for the game, we can immediately get from context just how advanced these students are. The confusion thing is not really an issue. But more importantly, this is a much catchier title than Super High School Level. It's shorter, it's punchier, which works because Super High School Level in Japanese is a short and punchy title. It's easier to say Chou Koukou Kyu than it is to say Super Duper High School Level. It's 4 syllables versus possibly double that. You can still say that Ultimate plays into a humor of the original that you may believe it has. I mean, the idea of calling anybody the ultimate writing prodigy, the ultimate swimming pro, the ultimate fashionista, it has to make you laugh, even if just a little. But it still takes itself seriously enough where you can see an institution like Hope's Peak Academy genuinely using it. Ultimate plays into a balance that Super Duper just misses, and this balance helps to establish the identity of the franchise. I spent all this time emphasizing identity, emphasizing brand, and why it's so important because Danganronpa is a very good case study of why these topics and ideas are important when creating localizations. Before NIS America even made the announcement to localize Danganronpa 1, Danganronpa 2 had released in Japan 2 years earlier and to massive success. And NIS America and Spike Chunsoft knew the cultural phenomenon they had in their hands. And they knew if they even wanted it to have even the slightest chance of that same success here in America, they would have to take the parts that made it iconic for them and make it iconic for us. In other words, their approach to adapting the identity was crucial. That's not to disparage the games themselves, by the way. Obviously, the writing and the story is good enough to capture our interest in the first place. There's a reason we keep coming back after all. Well, I don't know. Maybe not after these recent releases. But it's telling that for fans nowadays, the parts that people identify with, the parts that are memeable, the parts that keep turning heads are the parts that have been cleverly localized in order to establish a unique Western identity. When we think about the Japanese media we love here in the West, we are ultimately thinking of the brand that a single translator or a group of translators chose to adapt. While at the heart remains an original text that earns the majority of our love and adoration, the spice that makes it work so well in English is ultimately the decisions of how translators represent and promote a brand. Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc has its controversies, and that is a conversation worth having. But when it comes to the bigger decisions, this game is a beautiful stepping stone in building the identity of a franchise that I and so many others hold dear to heart. For NIS America and Spike Chunsoft, this wasn't another thing to translate. This was the beginning of a cultural phenomenon, a community. And all these years later, we can see just how well these choices held up. And then there's Danganronpa V3. Thanks for watching.